Welcome to the Startup Dentist Podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Trutter. After over 800 plus successful dental startups, I'm here to share everything I know about starting a profitable and purposeful dental practice with you. In each episode, we get right to the core of what it takes to launch and grow a successful dental practice. So whether you've just started researching dental startups or you've been sitting on the fence for a while, this podcast is your personal roadmap to your very own dental practice. Let's get into it. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Startup Dentist Podcast. I'm super excited for today's episode. If you started to venture out, or maybe you're starting to some initial stages, your startup journey, then definitely check out my most episode where I talk about the common pitfalls and true real estate strategies that have helped guide hundreds of successful startup dentists. So before you start looking at real estate, before you call a sign, before you start looking out there, definitely listen to this episode because this is going to give you a great insight of like what's real estate, how there are elements that are there that could be irreversible and could damage you on a long-term basis, and really making sure that you have the right lens that you're looking through when it comes to acquiring your real estate, whether it's by lease or as well. Let's talk about like overcoming fear and taking the biggest step forward to becoming a practice owner. So I'm going to address some of these fears today, the biggest concerns, the biggest fears, and really just say what's stopping you today of taking that step forward of becoming a practice owner. And I'm going to share with you some of those stories. So grab your notepad or whatever device you're using to take notes. I have started now multiple businesses, and I can tell you as an entrepreneur, there are mental and emotional roadblocks that are there. There is the fear of leaving comfort. So if you can think about like where you're at right now as an associate, some of you are pretty comfortable making a good living. You can come home. You don't have to worry about things after hours. Don't have to worry about is payroll done, all these different elements. But for those that are thinking about becoming a business owner, there's something else. There's that itch that needs to be scratched of I'm comfortable, but we all have to get out of that comfort zone. And I don't like comfort. Actually, I like comfort when it comes to like I'm on vacation and things like that. But comfortable just feels like something's going to happen. Things need to be happening because when we get comfort, we lose focus. And we can harness fear. We can harness fear to take action. If you think about some of the greatest success stories that are out there, one I always think of is because I've watched it was on like runs and things like that, The Last Dance, telling the story about Michael Jordan in the Chicago Bulls. And growing up in Illinois myself, funny enough, I was a pretty big Bulls fan, but I was an MJ fan. But I was actually a Utah Jazz fan because John Stockton was my favorite player. He was a gritty 6'1" guard, probably was dirty. You can't see me if you're watching, like I can stand up if you want. I'm not tall. I'm about 5'11". So he was my inspiration. And I wore number 12, who was John Stockton's number. Totally off topic. But I say this because fear can do one of two things. Fear can either make us become small and cower underneath the fear, or fear can give us like focus. And a lot of times what we need to do is kind of find that happy medium of like, I'm scared and I'm excited. And that's exactly what I have our vision calls with clients. It's always, I would say nine times out of 10, it's like I get a very similar answer. I'm excited. And I always say, perfect. That's the perfect thing that you need to be. You should be scared. You're venturing out into outside of your comfort zone. But first thing I always say is you need to draw a line in the sand too, when it comes to what that timeline is. I recently spoke to a doctor. Maybe she didn't disclose, like I've been looking for a practice to purchase for years. I don't remember. Maybe she didn't give me the number. But I said, why wouldn't you just start up a practice? We work with acquisitions. We've guided a lot of acquisitions. And a lot of times what we do with our acquisition clients is we apply a lot of the startup model to that because it's about the transition into a practice and really making sure there's systems and there's protocols. And you got to have a plan. You can't just buy a practice and go, well, I hope this works. Because buying a practice is not as simple as most people think. They may think, I buy a practice, I have cash flow. Yes, but do you have an identity? Now, I'm going a little bit off topic here, but here's a conversation. I've been looking for a practice to purchase. And I said, why wouldn't you just start up? And her answer was kind of mind-blowing. Yeah, I would have done this. This was like 5 years ago. Then I asked, well, how long have you been looking? 6 years. Okay, so can you just let that simmer for a moment, folks? I could have 3 startups in the last 6 years. And I understand there's like, everybody says you should purchase a practice. Listen, I'm an advocate for acquisitions. I've guided clients with acquisitions, but at some point, like life has passed by. There's only so many acquisitions available in a certain marketplace. There's going to be a lot of buyers. DSOs are gobbling up practices. What's left over is these crummy, underperforming practices. So at some point, it's like, do you want to become a practice owner or not? Do you want to get out of your comfort zone? But the other thing is draw a line in the sand of like, when is that time? There's never going to be a perfect time. I've talked about this before in my podcast. I'm an advocate for practice ownership. It's got to be the right for you. You have to understand that every year that passes by, if you don't take action, others are passing you by. You can stay in your comfort zone. You could be listening to this podcast 3 years from today. Man, I wish I would have done something. Still thinking about it. Just not quite sure. There's never a perfect time to become a practice owner. The market is not predictable. Interest rates on loans are never going to be predictable. Your success is not predictable. But 100% of the shots you don't take, you will miss. And that's a reality. Whether it's in business or not, yes, we have to take calculated risks. But when you have a plan, whoa, now it feels much different. When you have a plan to take action. And I would say this, like, there is the real fear of debt in failure, finding patience and things like that. So let's talk about the debt thing here for a moment. With the right loan, it'll provide you the necessary funding. It's not a personal loan. Yes, you will need to take funding out that is available. And I understand, Stephen, I've got student loans. Yes, most of you do. And there is that other debt that comes in there. Now, I'm not a Dave Ramsey guy. I am not a fan of Dave Ramsey. Dave Ramsey speaks to people that like have lots of credit card debt and middle class kind. In like, if Dave Ramsey was guiding everybody, none of you would be dentists because he would say, oh, dentistry, wait till a point where you can write a check to become a dentist. Is that my Dave Ramsey voice? I like to do voices sometimes. I'm not a very good voiceover. Until you can pay for your dental school, you shouldn't go to dental school. Awesome. Great advice. Dave, congratulations. There are no dentists anymore. There are no dentists anymore. Because without loans or family putting that money in, we wouldn't have dentists. We wouldn't have medical doctors. We probably wouldn't have vets. We wouldn't have a lot of people if it wasn't for the necessary funding. Now, what I'm an advocate for is making sure that you have the proper funding. Now, with the proper bank, it will give you that ability. Now, what you do, I've talked about financing strategies. It's a different kind of conversation, but making sure that you understand what you need to do is make sure that you have a rainy day fund. Banks will want to make sure that you have liquidity. So give yourself 10% of a cushion. So if you're going to borrow, you probably need somewhere between about $50,000 and $75,000 in liquid assets, things you can get out today. So there you go. You have that, you're going to get the funding. I get it. There's that fear of more debt. But keep in mind, your practice is going to be paying this debt. It will be. The overall failure, here's the thing, is complete failure happens when you do nothing. When I talk on stage at our Startup Practice Blueprint or SPB course, you've heard about this. I always get clients lunch or at breaks and say, wow, we've heard all these success stories. Tell me about the ones that haven't done very well. And I'll say, I don't have failures. Here's the challenge. We have varying degrees of success of them. But I'll say the greatest success stories we've ever had have been the greatest implementers. A couple episodes ago, I interviewed a doctor. Her name is Dr. Arthi. And Dr. Arthi, she's in New York. You can't do a startup in New York. She can, in a good way. She's awesome. But you know what she's done? You'll hear her, it's the most inspirational story. She's gone through life challenges. She's had open heart surgery. She had breast cancer while starting a practice, family, all these different things. But what she did was she connected with one patient and then two patients, genuine connections in the community, yes, in New York, in order to do this. So failure happens when you do nothing. And I would even say like there could be failure of like launching because you haven't taken any steps forward in your career. Maybe you've been an associate for 10 years. So I'll say this, the failure of a practice owner, it comes when you don't have a plan. It comes when you don't implement if you have a plan. It also is, you need to understand as a practice owner, it's on you. Yes, you have a team, but you're the leader. And you'll have to be able to get comfortable with doing things, get comfortable with being uncomfortable is what I like to say. That means making connections in your community, getting out into the streets, making connections with other business owners. Those who start a practice and if they fail, It's usually some other outside forces. Maybe it's a divorce, maybe some other elements. But the ones that struggle, that's the bigger thing. There's a lot of startups that struggle. And it's simply because they're not doing the things necessary. They're not taking action. They're not marketing. They're not getting referrals. They're not doing small things that can make an impact within their community. They're not connecting within their community. And so I think there's varying degrees of success that can happen. Failure happens when you do nothing. You take action, that's when it happens. And that's why I tell everybody at our course, our greatest success stories were our greatest implementers. I've got great strategies. You're a dentist. When you sit down with a patient and they say, doctor, I want this done. And you say, here's the things that need to be done in order for you to have us to help you create the smile that you want. They have to follow through with that, right? If they don't, then they don't receive the smile that they wanted. And that smile could create something of a life-changing event for this patient. Maybe they're more confident. Maybe they can get that job. But if they don't follow your roadmap, they don't get the success either. The roadmap is there. Follow the roadmap and you have a plan. There's a fear of finding patients. It's real. When it comes to marketing, it's a big conversation. A marketing strategy is not built upon having just an agency say, all right, put out ads. I have a website, check the box, I have marketing. No, you don't. You got a couple things. There's not a trick to marketing. I see on a lot of Facebook groups, I'm in a lot of different Facebook groups, like what's everybody doing for marketing? Doesn't matter what everybody's doing for marketing. I think there's a lot of things you can pick up, like tactics and things like that. But really a marketing strategy is built upon having a purpose that you can tell to the community to connect within your community. Have a team that's tied to that purpose, that can connect with each patient that comes through that door, each and every single time. That's your internal marketing. You have ground marketing. The first 100 patients are on them. We say that to them. We say, we're going to give you a plan. Find 100 patients. We say, think about the circles that you're involved in. Family, friends, colleagues, other businesses within your marketplace, and say, the first 100 patients that come through the door, you need to strive to get those through the door in the first 30 days on you. Your agency that you'd be working with, doing ads and your SEO and all those different elements are going to be there. So the patients are there. There's a lot of people that are out there to say, oh man, startups are bad, and you're not going to find enough patients. I'll tell you what, some of the greatest success stories we've had clients go into areas that had a lot of dentists. I just talked about Dr. Arthy. There's a couple of dentists in New York. I can think about Dr. Brian. He was 25% under this number from a demographical perspective. I can think of hundreds of stories of clients have gone into marketplaces where statistically it doesn't align with what the industry says in terms of the patient to doctor ratios. But what they did is they had a plan to go out and say, I'm going to outwork everybody else early on. I'm going to go out. I'm going to plant my flag. I'm going to go out there. So the patients are there. You can attract them. That strategy that marketing strategy we have is based upon real life scenarios of ground marketing, making genuine connections with each and every person that comes through the door and taking action for this. Now, I mentioned a couple stories. Dr. Ben is in Louisiana, and I'll even quote what he said when he came on as a client. He goes, I'm afraid of all the unknowns. And what if I make an irreversible mistake? Let me tell you about some of his milestones now. Over $1 million practice, hired an associate recently. 2 years ago, he sent me a message and said, I've done something I never thought I would ever be able to do. Pay off my student loans. And then just a few months ago, he sent me a text message, said, second thing just happened. I bought a home. The afraid of the unknowns is there. Having a plan is what that is. Dr. Christina, one of our most recent clients, said one of her fears was, I don't know the business of dentistry. And here's the thing is, I think there's a lot of unknowns that are out there when it comes to there's so many resources out there to understand the business of dentistry that's there. Find mentors. Find people that can give you that kind of training and that guidance, because it's important to understand that, because when you become an owner, it's not just you as a dentist anymore. You have a team. You're not just a person doing dentistry. And so it's important that you understand what that is and that you understand that. And I'll just say this. How many years does it take? If you take no action today, what's the worst case scenario? Another year passes, unfulfilled, not having ownership, not having freedom or control. Now, when you start up a practice, listen, you're going to be working your tail off. I am not going to mince words. Anybody that's ever done it will say, hardest I've ever worked. But you work so hard because it's going to be yours. And you have that ability to build something. and you have a team to be able to build something together. But once you get it built, now you're able to have that additional freedom. Ownership is not for everybody. I am an advocate for ownership, but I will say this. I've met thousands of dentists in my travels. Lots of them, not a good fit to ownership. Great fit as an associate. That's perfectly fine. They need associate dentists. But what I say is taking that leap, have a plan that's there, because another year is going to pass. Other events are going to come up, and then you're going to start come up with the excuses. Well, the market's just not right. I got this thing I got to be able to do and things like that. Yep. You know what? There's not a perfect time. I got 3 daughters. It never came perfectly. I love all 3 of my daughters. When I became a father, I was like, well, I'm a father. Got to figure this thing out. Becoming a business owner is that way. But you need to have a plan, like execute a plan, have a business plan. How am I going to get patients through the door? What do I need? So if you're kind of thinking about like to calm your nerves, like, all right, think about it, what you're doing right now as an associate. How many patients do you see? What do you typically produce per month? Okay, what are those elements that are there? And say, can I replicate this in my own practice? You can with a plan. I think it's taking that leap because another year is going to pass. So the worst case scenario is, what is it? Another year passes, another 18 months passes, and you can stay living in that comfort zone. That's perfect. Or you can push yourself out of that comfort zone to become a business owner. If you take action, 18 months from today, you can be opening your own practice. 18 months from today, you could be proud as a practice owner. You could be more confident. You could be building something up for yourself, for your family, maybe for your children, and you've taken that leap. You can join so many of those people that have done this that says, listen, it was hard. I got here, but I'm now proud. I'm more confident. I have the flexibility. If I want to take this time off, I can do that. I have this flexibility to be able to do these things. And I have this thing that eventually I could sell down the road. There's never going to be that perfect time that's going to exist there. There's going to be the right time. And I would say, don't let it be years, because the days are, what do they say? The days are slow, but the years are fast. Holy moly. Because I'm looking at colleges for my oldest daughter, high schools for my youngest daughter, middle daughter, eventually, college in the next year and a half. It's like, wow, my wife and I were like, whoa, wait a minute, what happened? Time flies fast. The days are slow, the years are fast. Take action, have a plan, surround yourself with people that have done this hundreds of times so that you can overcome that fear of like taking that leap. And I'll say this fear that you have, understandably, overcome it is taking action, simply taking action. You can let it shrink you where you can't do anything. If you're paralyzed by it, you can say, I'm going to overcome it and I'm going to find what I need to do. I'm going to find those first steps. Maybe that first step is having a conversation. Maybe that first step is talking to a colleague that's done this. Take that first step to understand, is practice ownership right for me? And if it is, then take that leap. If you are that person that's like, not quite sure, I think I want to become a practice owner. I mentioned our course, Startup Practice Blueprint. We do these twice a year. It's a limited amount of people because I want it to be intimate. You want to understand the plan. You want to understand our 13-stage process, and actually connect with doctors who have gone through this. Dentists have done our program, understand what's there, understand their journeys, their fears, their successes. Then go to startuppracticeblueprint.com, register for our next course. Seats do fill up very quickly for our 2 courses that we do twice a year. This way, this is a great leap forward to say, okay, I need to explore this. I need to understand, can I do this? What is the plan? And then talk with colleagues that have done this. They're going to give you an unbiased opinion of what this is. And that's what I do. I bring dentists that are there and they can talk about their life before a practice owner and in post, and see if that's the right path for you. All right, folks, that is a wrap on the topic of comfort zone. Don't forget to check the show notes for any and all links and resources that we talked about today. Next time, we're going to dive into what it actually feels like to quit your associate position and what you need to do. So some of those emotional roller coasters of like cutting the tie and the excitement of that last day. I like to call it Freedom Day, when you no longer work as an associate. We'll see you there. As we wrap up this episode, take a moment to picture yourself a year from now. Are you still in your associateship, Or are you rocking it at your own dental practice, creating beautiful smiles and making a real difference? If that's the dream, it's time to chase it. Before we split, make sure to hit subscribe, drop a review, and give us your rating. It helps us keep bringing you the good stuff that you're into. Until we meet again, keep taking that next step towards your future practice. Here's to investing in your dreams and making them a reality.